Hell is overflowing, and Satan is sending his dead to us. Why? Because when there is no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
In a span of 40 years, George A. Romero made 6 films containing zombies. George A. Romero did not invent zombies. What he did do was popularize the term in modern culture with his hit movie called Night of the Living Dead in 1968. His most recognized work we know of his are Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, and Dawn of the Dead. From the 3 movies I've mentioned, I've only seen the original movie that George A. Romero directed for Night of the Living Dead. The first movie though that introduced me to the world of zombies was Dawn of the Dead, the 2004 version. I remember I was in the movie theater once and I was watching the film about a nurse who was working past her shift at a hospital. She was going home to get some rest from a long shift, and she also talked to this little girl who was roller skating around the neighborhood. The lady got home, showered, and rested for a bit until both her and her boyfriend were woken up the next day by the same little girl she saw the day before. The little girl did not look normal at all. She had blood all over her clothes and body. The boyfriend went to go check on her. He told the lady to call an ambulance, but then the little girl started biting the guy's neck. That's all I really remember from that point on, because I closed my eyes and left the movie theater once there was a scene where everything calmed down. At the time, I was about 8. I should have known by the sound of the music leading up to showing the little girl that this was going to be a scary film. Using a zombie kid as the first on-screen zombie shocked me to the core. For the audience at the time, I bet it was very surprising as well. Furthermore, what made the intro scene unforgettable was that it didn't take long for a person bitten to turn into a zombie. What I like most about the film is the zombies themselves. The producers of Dawn of the Dead turned to Oscar-winning artist David Leroy Anderson. He won an award for The Nutty Professor in 1996, and the following year, another Academy Award for Men in Black. To make the zombies as believable as possible, Anderson and his team looked into crime scene and forensic photos. Anderson explained in an interview for Dawn of the Dead that there were 3 types of makeup that were designed for the zombies. For the first zombies that showed up in the beginning of the film seemed like they were still human and had some missing limbs. Around the middle of the film, the second variation of zombies came up on screen, and for the third variation, it's basically the last 20 minutes of the movie. These zombies looked rotten, and they did look like they were dead and not the living anymore. I was surprised to find out they used about 300 people for the zombie extras. Only for certain scenes they used CGI, but most of the movie they used prosthetics. During his time on set, while creating the makeup effects for the on-screen zombies, David Leroy Anderson, the lead makeup artist, expressed concern about the well-being of the child, both physically and mentally. When the girl had the zombie makeup on, Anderson told her not to look at herself in the mirror, afraid that it could affect her emotionally. But the great thing about Hannah was that she was able to act the scene with no problem. Hannah Lochner did a couple of roles where she was an alien and had prosthetic makeup on before taking on the role for Vivian in Dawn of the Dead. The George A. Romero zombies were slower, and it seemed like it could be easier to avoid them, but the zombies on Dawn of the Dead, they ran to get their prey, and it seemed impossible to escape them. Imagine waking up to this in the morning and finding out that not only is your neighbor trying to eat you, but the world has gone downhill due to the zombie virus. It would be terrifying, and you wouldn't know where to go or where to hide. Another film that had a strong opening, like Dawn of the Dead, was 2007's 28 Weeks Later film. I got to find out that the setting of the mall from the film is no longer available. The production designer found a mall that was scheduled to be destroyed, and so they remodeled the place so they can use it however they wanted. The creators had a ton of options to choose from for the location of the mall. There was one in Los Angeles, New Zealand, Romania, but they ended up going with the mall in Toronto. Almost every store you see in the movie, like the jewelry store, the baby store, the coffee shop, and many more, were all remodeled for the movie. Two of them were real stores. Not only was I surprised of how good the movie was, but also the people who worked behind the scenes on Dawn of the Dead. Does names like Zack Snyder and James Gunn ring any bell? It turns out that Zack Snyder was the director for this movie, and James Gunn was the one who wrote it. It was also Zack Snyder's directorial debut in a film. At the time of recording this video, Zack Snyder released his newest film called Rebel Moon, and James Gunn is officially working on season 2 of the hit show Peacemaker and creating the new DC Universe films. In conclusion, Dawn of the Dead 2004 made people excited for more zombie movies. If you search the top zombie movies of the 2000s, I guarantee you that Dawn of the Dead will come up. Dawn of the Dead is a film that could be appreciated by any horror fan for its graphic nature, especially considering the time it was released. To this day, I believe it still holds up with today's horror movies. Maybe even better, only time will tell. If you made it this far and enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Over the years, I have created other videos covering all sorts of horror movies, like Halloween, Chucky, and the Friday the 13th movies. If that sounds like something you will like the video and subscribe to the channel. As always guys, take care and live to the fullest.